Welcome to William Steele, True Crime and Still a Spotlight Television. This is William Steele with former New York City detective, worked in organized crime division, public morals. This guy did it all. He's a legend in New York and on these talk shows. So we have Victor
Fiabane.
Fiabane, like he said, like Giovanni, to make sure I pronounce it right. So Vic, thank you so much for coming on.
Bill, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. I think
You're
it's going
welcome.
to make a great show today.
You're welcome. So we had your partner on.
Big Louis B.
Big Louis B speaks extraordinarily highly of you. You guys worked together for years in New York. And what I understand, for whatever reasons, he and a lot of guys ended up on the Bad News Bear Squad and ended up with you and others making one of the biggest, most important organized crime cases in American history. So I am really honored to have you on the show, especially you guys are just getting rolling doing these things. You guys have a documentary out, and let me see if I can't throw this poster on the screen a little better for you. I think we're going to get it there. I don't know if that's the current one, or do you have a revision of that one?
It's a very good one.
Yep. So coming soon. I did see it. I got a copy of it. Thank you. It's phenomenal. You guys tell it like it is, the ups, the downs, and everything like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to explain how Vic here became like a legendary detective along with Lou and others that risked their life to make an organized crime case called Wasteland. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So tell me how you got started. What made you become a police officer? How did you get started? Where did you get started? What precinct did you start in? Just talk as long as you want.
Bill, back in the early 80s, 1980, I took the test like everybody else did, the New York City Fire Department test, New York City Police Department test. The police department called me first. I went through the academy, and lo and behold, I was assigned to the Midtown South Precinct, which is in the heart of Manhattan, New York City. It's one of the busiest precincts in the world, not in the country, not in the state, in the world. We had approximately 600 male and female police officers, detectives, and plainclothes officers working in this precinct. That's how big it was.
What years were you there? That's like Times Square. Like I used to go to school there. If you remember, there was New York School of Locksmithing and Alarms right there on 42nd Street. And so, like right next door, you'd come out, there's peep shows, X-rated theaters. I went there in the early 80s, and it was still a cesspool. What years were you actually there in that area?
From 1980 to probably 1990, 88. Midtown South Precinct encompassed Times Square, which we're all familiar with. And back in the 80s, it was smart porn and sex. There were live sex shows going on 42nd Street that you could pay for. That's how bad it was back then. Midtown South encompassed Grand Central Station, which we all know, Penn Station, people coming from Long Island, and the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. And included in this was the theater district. It was incredible. You had porn, smut, and then you had the theater. It was
some of the most affluent people in the world and in the country going to watch the shows, and right around the corner they're getting killed, mugged, robbed, and God knows what else happening to them. That's kind of the way it was. I remember Sardi's and all these places that were around there. I think Sardi's is still there, right? That wasn't that in your division?
It was, yes, it was back in the absolutely. That was hot and heavy. There was a lot of great restaurants there, but it was all off the beaten path of 42nd Street because 42nd Street was horrible. Mayor Koch at the time tried to change it. He had a tough time, and then when Mayor Rudy Giuliani came, he had enough and he changed it. Now it looks like Disneyland. It's beautiful.
I hear that analogy all the time. So some of the top designers and everything have stores there or billboards, displays. I was there in December, first time since I got released from prison. So for your audience who's watching this who might not know who I am, so I did 18 years in prison for nonviolent crimes. I was a jewel and art thief, cocaine trafficker, gun trafficker. And so I did a lot of time, 3 different states. I escaped from prison. I ended up on America's Most Wanted. Now I do these shows and I help people that are wrongfully convicted. I tell inspirational stories. I don't get involved with gossip. I don't even allow profanity on my shows. If somebody slips, even myself sometimes, I have to edit it out because I have a TV show called Steal the Spotlight, and it's a Midwest cable station. On top of that, I've been really blessed is that I'm writing books now, and my first book about Robert Durst, wealthiest serial killer in American history, was covered by Nancy Grace on her podcast while I was in prison. It exploded. It's I'm in the Sun, the New York Post, the National Enquirer several times. My co-author is an editor and a writer with the National Enquirer to this day, and so I'm very well plugged in with all this. And I guess the final thing for your audience, because my guys already know who I am, and just please everybody, if you're here, hit that subscribe button, hit like. We're gonna have more phenomenal guests like Vic and his partner Lou. And we're going to be starting a thing called Mafia Mondays, and I'm hoping to make these guys central to that with other guests. So, the first time I'm announcing this, my big show is on A&E Network. It's called Inmate to Roommate. Season 2 airs starting May 30th in a few days. Season 1 became the second highest rated reality show in the country, and there's not a day that I don't pick up this thing that there's not thousands of fans, people I don't even know, telling me how much they love me. And that's a very humbling experience coming out of prison, thinking everybody hates you, to having all this fan, because they say I'm funny or I'm sarcastic, New Yorker. So that's for your audience, so they know who you are. This show is really about you, but I wanted to make sure the people watching for you know who I am. So please, you guys want to be on the show, you have an inspirational story, law enforcement, a reformed criminal, something like that, you see my email on the bottom of the page. Vic, tell us now from there. So now you're in that area. I want to hear, because I didn't run those streets, but I did go to school there, and I learned locksmithing and alarms there. And that's why I used those skills to become a burglar. I was hitting stuff all over the country. And that's where I learned it, right there. But it was horrible in those days. It wasn't safe. I remember there would be presidential motorcade. I think it was in those days it was Reagan, and they would block the street, and the motorcade would come barreling down in front of the school. And then the other part of that was I was there in that area in Times Square twice in those years. I think once in the 70s, once in the early 80s, and it wasn't safe. There was bands of people running around, snatching chains, purses, just through the crowds. You know what I'm talking about, how unsafe it was in those years. So tell us some stories about some of the horrible things you might have encountered there that really give an idea to my audience what happens in Times Square area prior to what it is today.
I will, Bill. There's two stories that stick out in my head, but first I want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
For what you did with your life, how you turned it around. 18 years in jail, that's a long stint. And guys that don't understand it, that's a long time not having your freedom, not having your family, not having nobody. It's a tough, long stint. You turned it around, and look what you did. Congratulations. Now you're on TV. You're on A&E. Good for you. Good for you.
It's crazy because I have an electronic press kit out. You guys can go to my website, williamsteeleauthor.com. And so this gives you an idea of what I do. I'll keep it on the screen for a second. That's some of the things we do. And my co-host at the moment, and I think Louis is going to come on as a weekly co-host, and possibly yourself. You're more than welcome to discuss these type of cases, organized crime, law enforcement, crime prevention. My other co-host is Ignacio Esteban. And this is him on the left side of the screen, retired ATF agent, author of 80 books. My fiance, Dr. Mary Bass, in the middle. She's a forensic accountant, fraud examiner. And Frank Lordi, former commissioner in Ohio. He's came out against corruption, and then the other side framed him, put him in prison. He gets out, got exonerated, and he's been a very good friend. And so a lot of things like that are going on. Show you Ignacio's book right there, ATF Undercover. We have Lou's book here, which I'll pop on the screen a little later in the show, your partner. This is my first book. This thing's blowing up right now because The Jinx is on HBO Max right now, talking about this case and this book. And you see Nancy Grace's name on the cover of my book. And then I just put this one out. True story about a bank vault heist in Chicago. And I give crime prevention techniques that could have prevented this. And then another one, I don't see my cover here, but you get the gist of it. I'm really trying to do the right thing and do inspirational and crime prevention. And so you guys are a perfect fit. And I'm glad you guys are coming forward and telling your stories now. So let's finish up.
You're doing it. You're doing it every day. You're showing it as we're talking. It's good for you.
I appreciate it, man.
There is a God.
I'm learning this, and again, because you're new here and you're going to have a whole different subset of people watching, I wanted to make sure they get in the description and see who you are, who I am, and how they can get your documentary, watch your documentary, and get the books and things that we're trying to do Every one of them has a positive message. This isn't gratuitous true crime. You tell the stories to get people's attention, and then you give them inspiration or something like that. So what craziness went on that was like, what the hell did I get myself into?
Working in Midtown South, there were, like I said, 600 police officers. At any given time, you could make an arrest. You could make a robbery arrest, an assault arrest. It was for the picking. They would come there and just prey on the working people or the people, tourists. Many tourists were robbed because these guys, the bad guys, knew these tourists were from out of town, out of the country. They were not coming back to be, to prosecute.
Right. So
they were very smart, the bad guys. And on top of it, at night when the theater district, or when the matinee, which was Sunday afternoons and Wednesday afternoons, the matinee, they'd be out there robbing these poor people that would be with their families going to a movie theater. That's how bad it was back in the early 80s. It was horrible. I mean, one time, maybe late evening, maybe 10:30 at night, one of the theaters let out. A couple were on their way back to a parking garage where their car was, and these two guys with guns came up, pistol whipped the husband, slapped the wife around, stole everything they had. Thank God the wife was smart enough to run away. And back at that time, there were no cell phones. She went to the nearest phone booth, called 911, because that's all you had back then. There was no cell phones, beepers, nothing.
Right.
And she gave such a great description of these two guys. Within 5 to 8 minutes, we caught them.
Right.
Based on her description. Not only did we catch them, they both had guns on them, which were reeled,
right,
bullets in them, and we recovered their jewelry, their wallets, their purse, things like that. It's a good feeling, but it was bad back then in the early 80s. And then another time, husband and wife, she would call saying that her husband beat her. We'd go to the house. She'd be, Bill, when I tell you, black and blue, bleeding. We'd come in and the husband would be sitting there like a saint, like nothing ever happened. And then we'd have to pull her out, get a couple of female officers to talk to her. We arrested the husband. We found out he's been beating her for years. Finally, I guess, God willing, she had enough. And she called us. Not me, the husband. No, I never touched her. She fell, this and that. You know how it goes. Everybody got a story. Well, the district attorney's office proved him wrong, and then he went to jail, and then she went on her way and moved out of state and started a new life for herself. But these are horrible stories that happen.
Was there a big case? I remember, even when the Guardian Angels started. Let me get into that for a second. Guardian Angels, Curtis Lee, I know he ran for mayor. He lost. Then you got some guy that I give a big thumbs down to in there now. But anyway, the second or third round of Guardian Angels, I was actually in it, on patrol in the subways. We used to go down to 42nd Street from Brooklyn, but we started our patrol in Brooklyn. And, you all wait till you gather up, and then you put the shirts on and the beret. But as you're going to meet everybody, you're in the script. You're in street civilian clothes. And it's really about trying to call in violent crime, making sure that violent stuff doesn't happen, or the police are notified, or there's people standing by watching, right? We had a guy that was there was a turnstile jumper, and he just jumped to use the phone. Like I think it was in DeKalb or something in Brooklyn. I forget where it was, but he this one guy, he'd already had a shirt on and everything, and nobody else did. We're waiting for the rest of the patrol, and he tells the guy, "Yeah, you can't do that." I said, "Hey, we're not here to stop turnstile jumpers. What are you trying to get us killed?" And the guy kept giving him a hard time, and he jumped back over. He says, like that, he said, "I'm coming for you." And he came back, man, with about 20, 30 people. Bottom line, we thought we were all going to get jumped. And he says, "No, they're cool. I want that one." And he stabbed him right in the chest, right next to me. I got out of the Guardian Angels shortly after that, because back then the training was abysmal. Now I admire them and what they're accomplishing. But how did you feel about them in those days? Because I know they were patrolling around 42nd Street.
Me, myself, and the police officers I worked for, we loved them. We loved you guys. It was just another arm to help us fight crime. Right. I mean, would they get involved? No, but they knew enough to call 911. But
Right.
in Midtown Manhattan, especially 42nd Street, there was 20, 30 foot cops. There were cops all over the place because that's how bad it was, how crime was. So they would just run up to you and say, listen, there's a guy down here with a black jacket on, a gray hoodie, this and that, doing it. And then we'd go and see what's going on. But
It was more like
we
extra
love
set
the
of
audience.
guys and ears. Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah. Yeah, and on the subways, it's more of a deterrent because they see them patrol and they might say, "If you guys looking at," but they wouldn't rob anybody when you're around right in front of you. Generally, I know there was another thing like in the 70s, might have went on in the 80s because I remember the only times I really went there was for school, and then there was times when like there was new Bruce Lee movies out, and it was always the kung fu flicks. Remember that down right around the theaters, right? You go to see Bruce Lee. So me and my friends would go watch Bruce Lee flicks around that area. So then I remember there was guys like in that time, they would go behind like tourists or people from the suburbs and they would go behind them and put them to sleep. Remember that? They put them to sleep and they robbed them in those theaters.
Yes.
And we saw that go down one day and I thought the guy was dead, but he came to because it was really dangerous back then. I remember how dangerous it was.
I tell you the truth. We as police officers, we loved you guys. You were not there to hurt us. You were not there to demean us. You were an omnipresence in the city with those red berets and red jackets, and it meant a lot to a lot of people, especially police officers. I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was great and good for you guys.
Usually the cops from that era are like, vigilantes. Let the trained police do their jobs.
Bill, it was so bad back then. Any help was well welcomed. To put it that way.
Yeah, it sure was. So from Midtown South, where was your next assignment?
After working in Midtown South from the 1980 to 88, I got transferred to Public Morals Division, which they called PMD. What did it include? Include unlicensed bars, social clubs, illegal casinos, prostitution, in-house and street, and illegal fireworks. So public morals, it was really good. I mean, it was not you weren't dealing with drug dealers and you were dealing with victimless crimes. You were dealing with naked men and naked women. You were going to casinos where everybody was drinking, gambling, having a good time, dancing. You were going to social clubs. Social clubs was a beautiful bar or nightclub that they couldn't get their liquor license for some reason or another. And they opened up these illegal establishments.
So like after hours or something like that. You're not talking about like organized crime social clubs, those type, like the Ravenite.
Well, believe it or not, they were all controlled by organized crime.
They had to pay.
They were victimless crimes. Nobody was getting hurt. You were going there to spend your money, have a good time. Everybody was happy. It was a win-win. Organized crime won, and you won as the patron. And that's what I used to do as an undercover, go into these places, find out who the dealers were in the casinos, find out who the bartenders and managers were in the social clubs. And then in the houses of prostitution, you'd have to go in. Back then,
you froze up. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good now. Go ahead. In the houses of prostitution.
In the houses of prostitution, we had they called Kells, K-E-L-S. They looked like beepers, but they were not. They were recording devices. So you'd have to go in, how you doing? To in-house house of prostitution. Yeah, I got you a name and number out of an ad. I'm, looking to have some fun. And then you go in, they let you in. Right. Some people would search you, make sure you didn't have a gun. That's why a lot of these places, you could not have a gun. They always searched you. Right. So unlike Louis did drugs. He always had guns. He had several guns, knives, this, that, battle bag. Not me. My battle bag consisted of a toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, dental floss, and lip medics. That's what my battle bag contained.
Now, Louis says you highly recommend this product. So shout out, because we actually, on your and Louis' recommendation, we actually obtained a 3-pack of this stuff here. So we tried it, we used it, and we let me see, we recommend it.
That's it.
But Louis says the best way to use it is not to stick your finger in it. The best way is to stick your lip in it so nobody else will use it.
Well, I did that, so Louis couldn't use mine.
Well, that being said, I saw your documentary, and I'll give away one little teaser. There's a part where you and him are very much in love and snuggling with each other. What the hell was that all about?
Once we got into after public morals, I got transferred into organized crime investigation division, which was investigating the traditional 5 organized crime families in New York,
Right.
which we all know who they were: Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Bonanno. Okay, I got assigned to headquarters team 1, which was the doing the Gambino and the Genovese crime family.
Right.
We know who the Gambino was. That was with John Gotti. And the Genovese was with the Chin, Vinny the Chin Gigante. Always walked around in a robe.
They had the supposedly, allegedly. I'm not trying to get targeted here. he acted like he was mentally ill to avoid prosecution and all that.
He was a smart, sharp man. That's how mentally retarded he was. He always walked around in a bathrobe, which was very thick in the winter, with shielding in it. This way he wasn't cold. He'd mumble and walk around. He had a great shtick, and it worked, for many, many years. But me and Louis hugging, once we got involved with the Operation Wasteland case, we had to set up surveillance across the street from one of our subject locations.
That was Ponte's restaurant, if I recall correctly.
That's correct. The Canal Street and 12th Avenue, West Side Highway, whatever you want to call it. And there was a parking lot across the street. Unbeknownst to Louis and I, it was a gay man's hangout all day long and even after work, where you'd see these cars pull up with car seats in the back and these single men looking to have a play date. And there were people always coming up on Louis and I because we were trying to set up surveillance with the camera and video, and they wanted to join our party, and me and Louis would be hugging and loving each other, saying, sorry, this is not a party for everybody. You can't join. And they'd go on their way and find somebody else.
Who's that?
There he is. There's my lover. There's Louis B.
There you go. So that's Lou Balistrieri, the former detective, great guy. My last guest, and he's your buddy. So we're gonna go backwards a little bit now. So we got off the lipstick issue. It's not lipstick, guys. It's a lip balm. It really works good. So we're gonna go back. So now you're in the public morals, the Vice Squad, essentially, right? What's the craziest thing you've encountered there? Or heartbreaking thing that you've seen in that job?
Believe it or not, it was the in-house prostitution. Once we'd lock these girls up, we'd come to find out that some of them were housewives trying to make ends meet. Their husbands didn't know, their family didn't know, because in these houses of prostitution, they had the hot phones, which were for the girls, which meant, the Johns would call these hot phones. And then they had a red phone, which was for all the girls' families, boyfriends, or what have you, that they would call. Oh, yeah, is, Mary there? Oh, no, she's busy with a client now, or she's out to break. And this is how they did that. And there were some girls that were school teachers, some girls paralegals that were just a lot of college students, which broke my heart, Bill, that had to make ends meet, and this is what they had to do to make ends meet.
There was a girl. If guys want to read my book, I talk about some encounters with Durst, and there was one girl there that he was doing whatever he felt like with her, and to put her through college. And he had very bad plans for her, and I actually helped her get away from him. So it's in my book there. Sex and the Serial Killer, my bizarre times with Robert Durst. Now in that area, in Midtown, what do you call it? Midtown South, right? What family controlled those things and had to get paid off for these things to exist? Are you able to discuss that publicly?
Yes, it wasn't just one family, because each organized crime family had their hands in something. One family had concrete, one had garbage, one had the unions, the plumbers, the electric. They all had their hands in everything. So they were just not assigned to a local area. It was a well-oiled machine, organized crime.
They had it worked out to avoid war within themselves. You take this, our family's taking that.
Correct.
How about this? You probably, now we've had very few private conversations as opposed to myself and Louis, which, he's a great guy, but he has the stories for days. How many times are you going into these places when they figured out who you are? Maybe somebody recognized you. Did somebody try to say, hey, here's 20 grand. Could you go away or tip us off if something's coming around? I'm not alleging corruption on your part or his, but I'm sure that was presented to you sometime in your career.
What a lot of them would do is, listen, if you want to come by another day for any type of sex you want, it's all you. But no thank. I was married at the time. I didn't need it. You get caught, you lose your job, you lose your pension, you lose your medical. But what good is it?
Right.
But they would try to sell you sex once they found out who you were.
They try to get off cheap instead of giving you an envelope packed with $100 bills, right? That's exactly. For the movies. That's for the movies. Cheapskates. See, that's what the cartels in South America.
I'm sorry.
That's how the cartels in South America and Mexico. Absolutely. Like, here's $1 million. Let us know when the raid's coming. Let us know who the CIs are.
Absolutely.
a little different.
There was one time we raided a house of prostitution. One of the girls got so nervous because she did not want to be arrested. Later on, we found out she was a school teacher trying to make ends meet with young kids. Sad. She ran out in Midtown Manhattan naked. She ran out of the house. I guess she lost her mind. She went into shock, whatever it was. So now we had to chase her to get her.
Oh, wow.
So now we're chasing this poor naked woman. And now me and two other detectives, we turn around. There's like 30 guys chasing us. They think we're trying to get the poor naked girl. It was horrible. The construction workers are chasing. We tell no, we're police officers. House of prostitute. Nobody wanted to believe us.
Right. They thought you were the John giving her a hard time, and now they're after you guys.
They were like, "What are these three guys chasing this naked woman? Let's go get them!" And there'd be 30 guys chasing us. We're like, holy smokes.
I had a situation like that. I used to use a lot of coke. People get real paranoid. And this one woman that we were with, I don't know what it was with her. She would use a little bit and then just come right out of her clothes, right? And then
was it worth it, Bill?
Did she? No. I'm not interested in her even at the time. But so I think she was in a bubble bath or something. So she's in there, getting high. And she'll take a hit and she'll jump out of the water. And this particular instance, like we're in a hotel room trying to lay low. I'm actually a fugitive at the time. Ground floor. It wasn't my room because I never rent on the ground floor. I'm always want to be up high, so I have vantage point. Nobody smells anything. But it's a Saturday night. There's people all out the poolside. My sliding doors faces the pool. She jumps out of the water, covered in bubbles, right? Nothing else on but bubbles. Runs through the room to the sliding glass door, rips the curtains down. She's like trying to open a sliding glass door. Everybody at the pool sees her in there trying to get out. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm wanted, man. Get your friend. This other girl. Get your friend. But I'm sure you see people
in a lot of trouble and you didn't do a thing.
And I didn't do a thing, but try to control the situation and not get in trouble. It was weird. Another time she did it at a friend's house. She disappeared for 2 hours. She came back. Can I come in? Still, yeah, it's weird. I'm sure you've seen people really not in their right mind or wigging out or paranoid or, thinking that the little grandmother walking by is the cops or the feds or somebody.
People do strange things. I don't got to tell you, it's.
Yeah, we coverage people that are struggling with addiction to get help. If you want to reach out to me, I'll steer you in the right direction. I've been there, done that, and many years ago. Over 20 years now since I last touched anything. And even back then, I never drank, don't smoke weed, nothing. But I made a lot of other poor choices, with stealing and trafficking. So you get out of Midtown South. I think that's when you started moving on to organized crime division. How did you come to be assigned there?
After Midtown South as a police officer, then I went into public morals where I was promoted to detective. Then from there, since I was such a good undercover detective, they transferred me to Organized Crime Investigation Division, which investigated the 5 traditional organized crime families, which we spoke about. I was assigned to headquarters number 1. Unbeknownst to me, I'm a new detective coming in back in, I think it was 1990. It was a dumping ground for all bad detectives, boss fighters, detectives that couldn't get along with each other, detectives that hated their families. Everybody had a problem. It was just, but I didn't know this, right? As I'm in the team, I'm like, oh my God, there's a bunch of nuts in this team. There was 8 of us. There was 7 of us. And then we started this Operation Wasteland. How it came to be was Operation Wasteland consisted of the private sanitation industry, which organized crime had a stranglehold on in New York City for 50, 60, 70 years. They could not get out of it. The FBI in the 50s, in the 60s and 70s tried to infiltrate organized crime in the private sanitation industry and could not. Mm-hmm. This is how our case was born. One of the carting contractors, a legitimate guy, was trying to enlarge his company. So mm-hmm. He went out to solicit stops, and he was getting them. He was not part of what they called the Trade Waste Association, which was controlled by organized crime, right, who dictated the prices, who could get what stop, who could go where, who could do that. He was not part of it. So he took it upon himself to get these spots. What they were doing was they warned him, stop. If they didn't stop, something would happen. And what organized crime did was they started stabbing his drivers in the legs so they couldn't drive. When that didn't work, they started burning his trucks. And then he put a complaint in with the Consumer Affairs Division of New York City, and then they sent it over to us. We went to go investigate and interview him. As we're interviewing him, one of the rival carters, organized crime carters, comes over and says, what did we tell you about these stops? Don't you understand? And the complaining witness, who was the owner of the legitimate carting company, said, wait, talk to my cousin, who happened to be the detective that was investigating his complaint.
He happened to be standing there by happenstance at that very moment.
Timing, perfect timing.
From your point of view, serendipitous, situation there.
The complaining witness, he said, listen, I'm old. He was, they called him Fat Sally. He was about 400 pounds, 4 foot wide, 4 foot tall. He was just a mess. Anyway, he was old. He said, listen, go deal with my cousin here. Here's my cousin. And it happened to be one of the detectives. And that's how this case was born. It was one of the largest undercover major case investigations in the New York City Police Department history.
Well, congratulations for being part of that. And I know that you have to tell me a whole lot more that went on with this investigation and the living conditions and the horrific, I think it was lieutenant that you guys dealt with. So what family was this that made that approach that day? And can you give the name of the undercover that was present that day? Because I know one got accolades and he's blurred out in a lot of the photos. Is his name public yet, or are they keeping that quiet still?
It is public. I'll give you his first name. His undercover name was Dan, and that's what we're going to go by. The organized crime families that were controlling the private sanitation industry in New York City at the time was the Genovese and Gambino crime families.
Okay. So Dan, shout out to Dan, congratulations. You're more than welcome on here if you're ever ready to come forward and tell your story, write your book. This is many years ago now. Half of these mobsters are all in the witness protection program, telling on each other, gossiping about each other, in prison, dead, or we realized the detectives were doing their job and the gangsters were doing their job. So in this instance, law enforcement won. So you're welcome to come on the show.
Yeah, he was good. The 8 detectives and our sergeant, we were responsible for keeping him alive, watching him, and then as the case progressed, we went up on wiretaps, Bill. We went up on wiretaps. We went up on pen registers. We went up on clone faxes at the time. Like if you got a fax, we got the same fax.
Oh, wow.
Clone beeper. Your beeper went off. Our beeper went off. We knew exactly who was calling you. We had many, many wiretaps going on.
Yep. I remember there was a plant, which is a surveillance post looking down at tradeways, and it was an abysmal setup because of why? What were the conditions there?
We had plenty of opportunity to find very good plant. What's a plant? It's called, it's like a large apartment. It's an undercover place where the detectives will go do their reports. That's where the wiretaps were. Surveillance was there, cameras, video, audio, everything like that. We had to position ourselves where one of the trade wastes associations were, which was on Canal Street in Lower Manhattan. So we set ourselves there. But we had a lieutenant, an Irish lieutenant that hated us. Why? Who the hell knows? But he hated us. We had some great places, beautiful offices, and he didn't want it. And we had to, he gave us a plant that was underneath a commercial printing press that was above us, that all you heard was boom, 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 24/7. It drove you crazy.
You guys should have put it for post-traumatic stress, like the bombs going off all the time.
We should have. He gave us no furniture. We had to make furniture out of boxes, out of containers, out of things we found in the garbage. He just did not want to give us a budget to make the place look good.
Now, your documentary Wasteland has pictures of I believe it's the actual plant that there's photographs of it.
I'm sure. I hope so, because I don't have it, but I hope so. And we'd have to buy folding tables to put our typewriters on and recording devices. He just hated us, so he would give us nothing. It was horrible. And there was 8 of us, and then we found out we're getting another detective in the team because the case is now starting to evolve into something. And we find out it's another boss fighter. I was like, oh, man, we can't get a regular guy in. There he is. Who do we get in? Louis Bale, boss fighter.
Louis, shout out to Louis. Louis, we love you. He's got a book out too, by the way. It's coming out. He's going to Las Vegas here in a few weeks for an event, and he's going to bring his posters for his book and for you guys' documentary. So this book's coming out soon. The second it comes out, we're going to put the link in the description if anybody wants to get it through me. So tell the story of how you met Louis. He's a great guy.
Right. So now, on the minute, we had to have the plant monitored 24 hours, 7 days a week, because we had wiretaps set up. So, because you never know when these wires would go off. These wise guys would talk 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. You never know. So the midnights were very slow, from 11 to 7 a.m. The wiretaps were very, very slow. So guys would nod off, sleep, relax, whatever. So here it is, 6 o'clock in the morning. Somebody knocks at the door. Open it up. How you doing? I'm Detective so-and-so. I said, oh, here's this boss fighter, Louis. I was like, oh, shit. All right, come on in. I didn't say 2 words to him. We had the lights out because it was midnight. Who's sleeping, who's resting. So I had to put the bulbs back in all the fixtures so we could see. And then nobody wanted to talk to him. And then finally the lieutenant says to me, Vic Fiabane, you're going to be with the new guy. I go, wait. Everybody got a new car here. Give him a new car. Lieutenant says, no, I don't want to give him a new car. He's going to be riding with you. I go, why? He goes, you guys live out in Long Island and you live close to each other. I was like, ah. And that's where me and Louis, but for the first maybe month and a half, I didn't say 2 words to him. We drove from Long Island into Lower Manhattan an hour and a half every day, saying maybe 2 words: hello and goodbye.
What year did he join the squad? What year did you meet him and start?
Let me see.
The forced carpool. I feel so bad for him because he's misunderstood. He's actually an extremely nice guy. Me and him, like literally, our first call was like 3 hours. My first interview with him was 5 hours, and I could have gone all day. He's fascinating.
He is once you get to know him, but when you get all these people calling you and rumors and say, "Listen, you got another boss fighter coming in," I'm like, I don't want to be associated with this guy. I'm trying to do the best I can for my career, and this guy's gonna bring me down. Anyway, so after a month and a half of not talking to him, we started talking because we had common things. We had things in common. We both going through a divorce. We both like hunting and all that. So we started our relationship that way, and it did work out. And he was a very good investigator as well.
Right.
And then the lieutenant who hated us just never gave him a car. And me and Louis just lived. We spent more time with each other than you'd spend with your families.
Right.
That's how long
the life of an undercover detective is pretty much like that. So I heard he was so disliked that that they would make him come into his undercover to the precinct house or the DEA office or something to sign in for work rather than let him report in from work from the field to keep himself and his cases safe. They used to make him come in
because the top brass up in 1PP in headquarters, they just didn't like him for whatever reason it was. I had no issue with him because I heard he was a boss fighter, but after I got to know him, he was fine. Like you said, Bill, regular guy.
That doesn't give him a right to put the guy's life in danger. If he's working undercover in the field and the option can be to report from the field that, hey, I'm on duty or whatever you guys call it, why make him come to the police station where he could be spotted by, criminals? So.
Very well said. You notice some of these bosses, they were behind the desk too long, or they were never undercovers. They were never never out in the field. They were never real investigators. They knew half of the big bosses didn't even know what the hell was going on, or they didn't care for you, or they didn't care at all.
You'd have to put on a ski mask to go check into work and then take it back off when he's out in the field. I think I have some images here. Now, I know this Wasteland bust went down. It was international news, really, national news, big time. It was a huge case. Tell me how the arrest went down and the promises and then the subsequent broken promises. Tell us how this all came to a head.
Once the investigation took off, it was like having a dragon where we had it by its tail little by little, and now it turned around and it was breathing fire down our throats. And that's the Manhattan District Attorney's Office was so excited. They put more DAs on it to help us investigate it. And the takedown was they were doing it in 3 increments, but the main takedown was the first phase of the indictments was approximately 25 to 30 private cars.
Wow.
And it was a big feat. It happened at 5 a.m. in the morning. There was hundreds and hundreds of detectives that had to effect these arrests, go to their homes, go to their businesses, wherever they were.
Simultaneously, too, but so the word doesn't get out.
That's correct. Only a few got out of the spider's web. But once their attorneys got in touch with us, we were told, you bring them in immediately. And we had them all at one Hogan Place, which was the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And there was 27 carting companies were indicted along with the owners. And it generated
at the time, I think it was Bratton or somebody was the chief of police, and Giuliani was the mayor, and Robert Morgenthau was the prosecutor.
That's correct. It was Mayor Giuliani was the mayor. William Bratton was the police commissioner at the time with Robert Morgenthau. They were so excited. It worked out great. Where, believe it or not, the White House got involved. President Clinton had summoned Mayor Giuliani and the police commissioner, Bill Clinton, to the White House, where $54 million was given to the city of New York by Washington to help fight organized crime.
That isn't that in addition to like 270 million asset forfeiture?
Exactly. Once the case was taken down, and in the indictments and the arrest phase and the trials, the city collected $270 million in asset forfeiture from all the defendants.
Have they ever justified where the money from the grant from the White House from the president went, or where that asset forfeiture money went? Because I know when they forfeit, most police departments then has to go through the tedious process of auctioning things off to the public, and then that money goes where? In this case, where did all this money end up?
Asset forfeiture, half of it went to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for future prosecutions, and the other half went to New York City Police Department. As far as the $54 million from the government, who the hell knows where it went? Who knows, Bill? But, there was all talk about all of us getting promoted, and it was the best case in police department history. FBI tried for 40 years to do this. They couldn't. A team of 8 detectives that hated each other wound up doing the best case in police department history. How does that work out?
It's like the Bad News Bears movie. The worst
it
players.
Was. It was the Bad News Bears conquers organized crime, and that's what it was.
I think everybody in a squad like that felt they had something to prove. So we're gonna forever be like no good if we don't pull this one off.
Right. And the Undercover got promoted, rightfully so. Did a fantastic job. Accolades to him. He was just fantastic. Sergeant Tony Mazziotti, he got promoted, and our lieutenant that hated us got promoted too. There was word in headquarters that the team was also going to get promoted, and that never happened, Bill. It never happened.
I know. Lou expressed a lot of consternation over that. A lot of distress over that. He's really irritated over it still, and I'm sure he got passed over. I think like the Undercover, the main guy whose face is blurred, Dan. I think he got a lot of things, and everybody who kept him alive and backed him up and executed warrants and everything else. They've been in the investigation for a long time, I guess. I don't even think you had to be in the investigation a long time to be part of the executing of the warrants, but building the case, you certainly had to be involved, in the whole thing. So,
yes, and something, when it came down to it, it just died. And then later on, we found out that Giuliani and Bratton were in such a power struggle. They didn't like each other neither. Like, what the hell? It just didn't make sense. But we did what we could do. Our sergeant, who was promoted to lieutenant, he put us in all for medals. Lou is the only one that never received the medal. Why? We'll never know.
Man.
And that's when Lou retired shortly after that, and then we continued with the case for another couple of years.
Right. Yeah, he expressed a lot of frustration over that, and I don't think it's fair, because from everything that that he said and that you've explained that I saw in the documentary, he was as integral as part of this of anything, and he suffered in that plant with the print press up above. So let's see.
Yeah, we all did. That was horrible. Bill, that was horrible. That was 24/7. That commercial printing company, boom, boom, boom. We prayed that a machine would break so we wouldn't hear it anymore.
Right. Hang on a second. I'm trying to get some of these images back on the screen so you can, because they may be coming out of order. I'm going to throw some things up on the screen and let me know who's who. And so this thing wraps up. What do you do after this case? I mean, it's huge. I know Louis for a while went into hiding. He didn't want to testify. and I'm sure the defense attorneys would love to hear what he's got to say.
Well, I was on the stand many times for trial because I was in charge of all the money. So back in the late 80s and early 90s. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I see you. Yeah.
Okay, so on our end, we lost the picture for a second. We're trying to get you back on. Okay, you're back on, and we'll have to probably edit that little part out on my end. That's no big deal.
Okay, Bill, back. Everybody in the team had a job. My job was the money. I was responsible for $1.1 million. Back in the early 90s, that was a lot. If I was missing 10 cents, the police department and the district attorney's office would call you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and tell you to get in the office. We're missing 10 cents. So I was in charge of making sure there was money in the accounts for the extortion payments, to protecting the complaining witness, paying all the bills, paying his bills, making sure he stayed alive. And we continued with the case to make sure these extortion payments were paid to the organized crime, trade waste associations, and the certain carters that demanded money for their stops.
So the government, or in this case, New York City, had to pretend through your informants and your inside people that business was as usual. Everybody was afraid. Everybody's paying their dues to the mob in order for you to get your tentacles deeper into them to see how far this thing went. And then, boom, scooped everybody. How many people were arrested ultimately in Operation Wasteland?
There were 27 carting companies. I'd have to say there was approximately 50 to 60 defendants at the time.
Right. All right, let me throw some images up here. Like I said, we're gonna go from there. We already saw the Blistex. What do we got here? There you go.
Oh my God, that's a long time ago, Bill. That's when my hair was the real color.
Hey, at least you still have it.
Yes.
I cracked my head over here in my car. I dropped my reading glasses off my lap into the street, and then I couldn't find them. I came up fast and bam! Yesterday, blood all over the place, split my head. So I just wanted to tell the audience that. Okay, who's this? This is you arresting some of the guys in Wasteland.
Yeah, all the defendants are on what they call daisy chains.
Right.
You know, it's one chain with all handcuffs on them, and then that's how it goes. Oh, these are the pictures of Police Commissioner Bratton with the commanding officer of organized crime investigation with its lieutenant and the.
Which one's Bratton? Where's he sitting?
You see where I am standing up with the green suit on?
My eyes are a little blurry. I gotta put my reading glasses on.
Right in the middle of the picture.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see it.
He's sitting right in front of me.
I recognize him now. Okay, I focused on that. So we're gonna throw some more up here in a second. Who's this here?
That's me. That's my